As I was moving some boxes around in my garage, along with some classified documents, I came across an unused RX 5600 XT. Previously, I had done a video discussing NVIDIA's 1660 Super and its place in my operations. Did it still have a place? In regards to the AMD card, I asked the same question. So join me as I take a closer look at the RX 5600 XT, addressing the question, is it time to retire the card? I'll first start by stating that what drives this question is the topic of density. I know I want to continue mining, which includes growing the setup that I have, but at the end of the day, I'm limited by the amount of power that I have to distribute. This is a variable that we all have in common. If you're still running a 120 volt setup, you have the option to upgrade to a 240 volt, which I highly recommend. But eventually, a limit will be reached and card replacement becomes a viable next step. The topic of efficiency is widely discussed at this time, so I will be looking at the RX 5600 XT from that perspective. However, I'm going to look at it from the point of view of a bull market, simply because that is when the general consensus would be to run all the cards again 24/7. And that is what I'm personally preparing the farm for. Let's also remember that individual results will vary depending on the setup being used. In the video, we'll review 3 projects that are in my portfolio. But before we get started, I want to show the power draw of the test bench with no GPU. In review, we can see once booted, the test bench is pulling approximately 33 watts. Let's start with my favorite project at the moment, Flux. In general, NVIDIA has always had bragging rights on performance, with Team Red coming up short. That said, there has been nice improvements in recent updates from Mini-Z Miner. Let's take a look at the overclocks I'm using. And after a few minutes, we can see that the card is mining at a minimum of 31 solutions, while the test bench collectively is drawing 160 watts. For review purposes, I will always divide the lowest stable productivity numbers by the highest power draw, sharing what should then be a worst case scenario. For Flux, the RX 5600 XT runs at an efficiency of 0.24. As a comparison, in my review of the 1660 Super, I was mining Flux at 0.30. We have the Flux halving coming up. It's been planned, so it won't be a surprise to anyone, but it is going to be interesting to see what happens to the overall network hash rate. Personally, I hope it comes down, allowing the difficulty to follow. When thinking of the RX 5600 XT, in my opinion, there are other cards I would want to point to Flux. Next, I want to review Kaspa, a project that has really done right with the K heavy hash algorithm. There's 2 simple mindsets when it comes to setting up the cards. We can run them to obtain the highest productivity, often at the cost of a higher power draw, or we can set the cards up to get okay performance and a really good efficiency, which is most often the strategy in a bear market. For the purpose of the review, I am more interested in obtaining the highest potential yield. Let's take a look at Kaspa on the RX 5600 XT. The GPU produces 274 megahashes with a power draw of 106 watts, allowing for a 2.46 efficiency. Lastly, I want to review Neoxa on behalf of the Kapow algorithm. But as always, the ugly power draw that Kapow is known for looms over it. After a few minutes, Team Red Miner is holding on to a pretty consistent 20 megahashes with a power draw of just over 177 watts. This lends to an efficiency of 0.11. If one is to purely look at the card's productivity of 20 megahashes, we could be pleased with it. But let's be honest, the efficiency is not really there, especially in 2023. No matter what we do, kapow will always consume a lot of energy. And in this day of rage by the environmentalists, it will be an uphill battle for adoption. Before Neoxa, I was mining Ravencoin, and since they're halving, several more projects have started up on the kapow algorithm. A lot of people are still mining Ravencoin, but for me, I don't know. I'm just not excited about the project like I used to be. Are you still mining Ravencoin? Leave a comment below sharing a driving reason to point our rigs to it. Let's move the discussion back to the original topic of the video, what to do with the RX 5600 XT. It's really only a question for existing operators of the card. For those who are thinking of buying the card on the used market due to the lower cost of entry, my advice is simple. No, do not buy this card, even if one can find them for under $100 each. There are better and readily available cards. For us miners who have several of the GPU, is there a project that the card can do well with? What about Ergo? Let's take a look. I've had an on and off relationship with Ergo, and before Kaspa, it too got my attention for the algorithm, at least in the terms of generating less heat compared to mining Ethereum. Once up and running, the card is pulling just over 79 megahashes, pulling approximately 123 watts, which leads to an efficiency of 0.64. You will have noticed throughout the video, other cards and their performance was posted, allowing for a comparison. For me, my strategy is to replace the RX 5600 XT with a card purchased on the used market. It's my intent to take the proceeds from the sale of my cards and apply it to the new purchase, in turn reducing my overall investment. I'm looking at the RTX 2060 Super because of its performance to price ratio, and the RTX 3070 is also being considered. Even though the card is more expensive, it's hands down the better option between the two. When comparing it to the AMD card, let's take a look at the difference in efficiency for these cards. No individual results will still vary, but this gives us an idea of what can be expected. Now we'll look at the difference in megahash or solutions. Clearly, both cards perform better, and rightfully they should. While the 2060 Super and the 5600 XT launched in the same year, it was priced $100 more. In this bear market, to make this change to the farm, I am giving myself a total budget of $1,000. I can buy 5 RTX 2060 Supers or 2 RTX 3070s. Let's take a look at what the farm will gain in productivity. In the short term, the 3070 will reduce the yield, but at the same time, we will reduce the power draw by quite a bit. It's fair to assume that with time, additional cards are still going to be added to the farm, so all it takes is one additional 3070 to get to a net gain on 3 of the 4 algorithms. This would also allow for 2 additional risers to be freed up for future opportunities. When I started mining, I admit I was guilty of buying nearly anything that could be found, partially because I was excited to engage in the industry, but also because of the difficulty in finding cards. Today, I'm more mindful. If money was not an issue, I would just buy all the 3070s I could find. But that's not the case. Let me answer the question. Is it time to retire the RX 5600 XT? In my case, I can spend $500 and add one additional 3070 to the existing 5600 XTs. While increasing the farm's yield, I would then be running 6 cards, and the question of density really has not been addressed. Or I can sell all 5 RX 5600 XTs, take the proceeds and add them to the previously mentioned $500. Purchase the RTX 2060 Supers, doing a 1-for-1 replacement, while increasing the farm's yield on 3 of the 4 algorithms. At the same time, the overall power draw would be reduced. In conclusion, my opinion is yes, it's time to retire the AMD cards. I hope you found this video to be interesting, perhaps helpful, in the event that you are in a similar situation. A like on the video is always appreciated, and it's always great to see new subscribers. If you're making changes to your farm, make sure to comment below on what strategies you're taking. Be mindful of your uptime, and always, thanks for watching.